Good morning, Aubrey. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to students listening.
Yes,
Aubrey,
wherever
how
you
are
are.
you?
Hello. I'm great. How are you, Jessica?
I'm great. It is morning here. It is fall. The air is cool and crisp, and I am relieved.
Stop bragging. I hate you.
I know.
It's so hot here still.
So crazy. All right, guys. So today we found one of the one of the hardest part 2 questions that we've ever seen, to be honest. So we are both going to answer the same really impossible part 2 question, and we're going to show you two different strategies for answering this question. So listen up for that, guys. But first, we want to share a recent poll we did.
Yes, this was a fun one. We were talking about opinion essays on the IELTS writing exam, and the Spotify poll was, should children be kept away from technology?
Mhm.
And only 18% of you said yes, and 81% said no. I have a feeling
That's
a lot of you are
interesting.
parents that are like, good luck
Yeah.
being a parent these days and not having any technology for your kids. It's just really tough.
You know, guys, I want to give you a couple real life ideas if you're asked about kids and technology in part 3. For my personal experience, so right now in the Portland public school system, they have a system wide phone ban just
Mm,
instituted this year.
that's awesome.
It is awesome. I
Mm.
love it. Kids are mad. And it's so crazy to me that kids are like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Why are you taking my phone? Like, it's really hard to institute. And all of the teachers have to be like super, super strict and super on it. And I keep telling the kids that are complaining, I'm like, you're going to get used to it. You do not have to listen to music all day on your phone. You do
Right.
not need your phone for anything in school. And it's like they've never experienced not having their phone in school. So they like can't even conceive of education without a phone.
I know.
It's a big change.
I love that idea because the main reason I ended up letting my teenagers have phones is because that's how their friends were communicating. So
Yeah.
I felt like I had no choice. I didn't want them to be left out. So if the
Yeah,
school would take
totally.
it away, I think it'd be so good for them to disconnect and have to
So
actually
good.
talk to each other.
Talk to each other, engage with the teacher,
Yeah.
listen, do work in class, but
Yeah.
like
Because,
before and after school, go crazy,
sure.
watch some TikTok for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not talking about technology today,
Anymore.
guys.
Yeah.
We did a recent part 2 episode last week that is super great. If you missed it, scroll up. IELTS Energy 1422, How to Be Funny on IELTS Speaking. It's such a great episode. So scroll up if you missed that. Hit follow so you don't miss another episode. And without further ado, let's get into this impossible part 2 question.
Yes, and be sure to stay to the end because we are going to tell you why our answers work, why the examiner would love them. And we're also going to share a new Spotify poll. So stick around for that because we want to hear from you related to this question.
Yes, exactly. All right, Aubrey. So, what is today's impossible part 2 question?
So, this question, and I'm glad we had a minute to think about it. The
Yeah.
question is, describe a foreign country you have never been to. Think about for a second how tough that would be to answer. You haven't been there. How can you describe it? I think this is very difficult. You need strategies to know how to answer this question.
Exactly, exactly. So Aubrey and I are going to employ two different strategies for this question, and we will explain why they work and how you can do it at the end. All right. So, Aubrey, I'm going to have you answer first here. Let me
Okay.
pull up my timer. So, again, the question is describe a foreign country you have never been to. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. I have always wanted to go to Tahiti. I've never been, but I think I'd have a hard time describing it because I haven't been there. But I have a friend who went with her family on a cruise and she told me all about it. And that was really the crux of what made this a bucket list destination for me. She said it's absolutely beautiful, these stunning vistas, very green. They did a bunch of hikes. And she said the people were so friendly, always very welcoming. She felt like she was really able to get to know a lot of different people and the food. She raved about the food. She said it was so scrumptious, very spicy. Everything was prepared. I mean, I've had, you know, food from like Jamaican food, maybe, or I've had a lot of like Mexican food. But she said, she was like, I don't know if you've ever had Tahitian. That's really rare that there's like a restaurant where you can go and get this type of food. So she was saying their whole family loved it. And her kids are usually super picky when it comes to the types of food that they eat. They usually like things to be more bland. So she was really surprised that they were digging into these really flavorful stews and dishes, that she was surprised. But they were like, this is, because it wasn't spicy, it was just very flavorful. So I'm excited about the food. I'm excited for all of the places that we could go, the cities and the hikes. It's funny because I haven't like, dove into YouTube to see what are all the things that we could do, where could we go, what I don't know that much about Tahiti because honestly, it's such a long flight from where I live. Or if it's a cruise, you're on the boat forever to get there. It's certainly not close to here. So it's kind of unreachable for me, right? It's not really practical as far as a destination. And if I were to go, I probably would just go with my partner and
Thank
not
you.
take all the
Thank
kids.
you. Thank you.
That's tough.
All right. That was so good. Okay, so I want to point out how you filled the 2 minutes there. And then I will do my sample answer, okay? So I'm going to employ a slightly different strategy for my answer. So what Aubrey did, that was so good, right? So you start out by saying like, this is really hard. I don't know much about this place because I've never been there. Like, just
Right.
directly say that. But you are still able to fill the 2 minutes talking about Tahiti, talking about the one place you chose, because you employed this strategy of saying, well, my friend's been there and this is what she told me. That's a great strategy because you could kind of fill that in with like lies also. Now, did you make any of that up or was that all true?
I do have a friend that went on a cruise with her family, so that much was true, but
Okay.
they didn't say a word to me about the food. I made that up because I
Okay.
realized I don't have that much really to say. She just said she loved it and it was beautiful, the people were friendly. That's
Yeah.
it. What else can I say for 2 minutes? But I have heard that the food is really flavorful, so I sort of made that up that she had told me that.
I'm sure it's great, right? I'm sure it's great, but and then you also compared it to stuff that you did know, like Mexican food and another
Right.
kind of food, right? But what made this so amazing is that it was still personal and focused. It was just another person's experience, right? So
Right.
that is one strategy of covering a country you've never been to, a place you've never been to, is talk about what someone else said about it who has been there. And again, you can make stuff up, right? What you could also do if you can't think of a full 2 minutes of stuff to say about this place you've never been, you can pivot, right? You can say some stuff like you just said. My friend's been there. She's did this. She went on a cruise. She said this. And it actually, her story reminded me of a vacation that I took with my family to a similar place, and then talk about a place that you've actually been to. So you can pivot as long as you address the question directly in the beginning. You can pivot at any time. All
Yes,
right.
which this is advice you got from a current examiner, right? That was saying you don't have to directly answer the question for the full 2 minutes. As long as you have answered it, pivot away, talk about anything as long as you're showing your fluency for 2 minutes. Don't feel pigeonholed into sticking to that for the full 2 minutes.
Exactly. And at the end of today's episode, guys, we will give you two direct quotes from this examiner about this part two difficulty. All right. I guess it's my turn to answer.
Yes, all right, here we go. Describe a foreign country you have never been to.
Okay, so the first country that came to mind here was Brazil because I've never been there, but I've always wanted to go, and I have had personal experience with parts of Brazilian culture, though, and that is also why I've always wanted to go there. Like, for example, I did study in Portugal for a while, for about a year. No, about 6 months. I was in Portugal studying when I was in university. And of course, the language is the same, right? Basically the same, but the differences fascinate me. So Continental Portuguese has more like zh sounds, whereas Brazilian Portuguese sounds way cuter to me because it's like j. It's like a harder like G sound, and it sounds bouncier to me, which I love. So I kind of wish I studied Brazilian Portuguese instead of Continental Portuguese. Some other touch points I have with Brazil would be capoeira, the martial arts that comes from Brazil. So when I was a student in university, I actually took capoeira classes and I learned the whole like the shuffle move. I don't remember what it's called. And I got to like do some mock fights with people. But what was so incredible about this capoeira school was they explored the culture of the martial arts, of capoeira, not just like the moves, the fighting moves. They taught us the history of it, where capoeira came from. And I don't know, honestly, like how factual the story is, but apparently it was created by some escaped slaves who built a commune in the mountains and they had to disguise their martial arts training. So they disguised it to look like dancing. So like the overlords, the colonial people would think that they were just dancing when really they were training to fight for themselves. I don't know how true that is. I hope it's true because it's a super cool story. Um, Also the music associated with capoeira. So there's like specific like drum beats and stuff. And we learned different samba rhythms. And there was even a samba night in this capoeira school that we could go to. So I got to study and learn about that culture.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
I
this is
actually had
such
a
a
lot
good
more to
strategy.
say.
Like, I could have spoken for 25 minutes,
I,
and I've never even been to Brazil.
I'll just tell you guys my notes for this part two question. I wrote down Jesus statue, World Cup,
Mm.
favelas, Portuguese, capoeira, coffee bag in my kitchen. I have like a Brazilian coffee bag on my kitchen wall, beaches, and carnival. Like there's so much. I surprised myself with how much I could like write down about Brazilian culture.
Yes, this is such a smart tip here that you don't have to have been to a place. If you want to go there, you probably know a lot about the culture, the people, the music. Capoeira, you described for a full minute of this answer, right? This
Yeah.
is what you can do, right? You don't have to even share where you would go, share what you do know about this place and this people, and you'll be surprised how fast 2 minutes flies by. I want to share a few specific things you did that I loved and were so native and natural and gave you really interesting intonation. One thing where you said you're like about a year, no, 6 months. I love this. This was really fun intonation. And if you do say something and then immediately realize like that's not quite right, of course the examiner doesn't know and you can just keep going, or you can
Mhm.
do this, right? Oh, it was about a year. No, 6 months. That's so good.
We correct ourselves all the time.
All
And
the time.
I just want to quickly put in here guys that you can pretend that you've never been to a place that you've been to, right? So if the
Absolutely.
card is like
Oh,
describe
good
a
point.
country you've never been to, just choose a country that you know a lot about whether you've been there or not, right? Say America. People know a lot about the United States. Just say you've never been here. Just focus on one country and when you take a minute to take notes, write down everything you know about that country,
That's
you
such a
know?
good tip. The examiner doesn't know or care where you've been. If you just got home from Italy, say, I've never been to Italy and I really want to go
But
because, and
my
then share all the
friend
stuff you
went.
just visited.
Totally. Yeah, and just say like a friend went and told you about it or something.
That's a really good idea too. Keep in mind, guys, it doesn't have to be true. The examiner doesn't know and does not care. They just want to see how fluent you are if you can speak for
Exactly.
2 minutes about something. Okay, a couple other things. There was like a shuffle move with capoeira, and you said this shuffle move. I don't remember what it's called. Do not hesitate to do this, guys. You're not going to remember the name of every food and everything. We do this as natives. We don't remember a specific word here and there, and you can do that too. Don't let it throw you off or make you feel like, oh no, my score is going down because I couldn't remember this one word. It doesn't matter.
Because if you describe it, that's paraphrasing. Like that's
Exactly.
not losing points, that's gaining points.
Yes. And then another thing when you said, I don't know, honestly, how factual this story is. And then afterward, you're like, I don't know how true that is. First of all, the word factual, band 9 instead of true, right? Great job not repeating that word. But this is so smart. If ever you're going to share some kind of story or myth or something about culture, use a phrase like this. And the intonation, go back and listen. It was so great to be like, I don't know how factual this is. That's such a great way to vary your tone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's summarize the strategies for tackling these hardest part two questions. So the first way, guys, is like Aubrey did. Um, just choose one country. Think about what you know already. Say that a friend went there. If you have any connection to anyone that's been to this country, just say what they told you and then pad it with your own sort of made up ideas and compare it to places you have been to, right? Still very personal, very specific, and still fluent, filling that whole 2 minutes. And then another strategy is to choose a country like I did where you do know a lot about it. This is a place you want to go. And like Aubrey said, if you want to go somewhere, it's because you know stuff about it that you like, right? So choose that place, write down everything you know, every personal experience with that culture, and talk about that. And then the third strategy is to describe a place that you have been to, but just say you haven't been to. Just say like, "Oh, my friend just went. This is what she said." Okay? So there's 3 different strategies for tackling the toughest part 2 questions. Now, Aubrey, can you share the 2 examiner quotes that would prove that these strategies will work in part 2?
Yes, so the first one is, "We don't care what you're talking about." This
She
is an
literally
examiner.
said that.
She
Yeah.
literally said that, right? And Jessica agreed during the 14 years you were an examiner. They are not judging your answer. They don't care what you're saying. There's
No,
so
man.
many specific things they're listening for, right? The
Yep.
vocabulary, the fluency, that's what they care about. They don't care. Even if it sounds like you're lying, they don't care.
Just directly answer the question in the first few sentences and then pivot to something related that you can talk about. That's it. Like she said, we don't care what you talk about. As long as it is as you connect it to the topic in some way, you still have to tell us why you're talking about it and how it connects to the topic. But that is not hard. We showed you how to do that today, right? And then another quote from her is, "We don't know you." Cuz that's what she said. She's like, "You could lie. We don't know
Yeah.
you. Make it up."
We don't know where you just traveled to. We don't know what your friend told you about this
Nope.
place, nor do we care, right? We just want to hear you use great vocab, great intonation, share details, even if you have
Yes.
to make them up.
Exactly, exactly. So, guys, don't forget to check out our Spotify poll on today's episode. We want to know you better. We love these Spotify polls as a way to interact with you guys. So, Aubrey, what is the poll question today?
Yeah, we want to know how much you guys travel. So the question is, have you visited more than 10 countries? Yes or no? Ooh, this is fun.
That's a great one because, honestly, I mean, we're so lucky, right? Because this is why it was so hard for Aubrey and I to think of a place to describe before we started recording today because we've been to so many countries. But it didn't take us that long because there's so many other places we want to go. So we're curious if you guys are in the same boat, right? So tell us if you visited more than 10 countries, if you're living on Spotify. If you're
Imagine
listening
living
on
on the
Spotify.
my daughter is. She's listened to Spotify. She's like the kids at your school, your son's school, plugged into Spotify all day long.
Right? I have more listening hours than my son, which is crazy because
Awesome.
I think I listen to I think I do live on Spotify. Anyway,
You do live on
guys,
Spotify.
thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll be back on Friday.
Awesome. See you Friday. Bye, guys.
Bye.